What was the moment you realized you were truly in love? Story 1. I knew I was in love when I saw the way he breathed, the way he talked, and walked, and smiled, and nodded, and I saw art. Suddenly, the simplest things a human can do were magical when they were done by him. I saw happiness. Absolutely this. I knew I was in love with my husband when I realized he made the ordinary extraordinary. He was walking towards me in his white shirt. We worked together at this point, and he just seemed to glow. Everything else just faded away. I remember thinking, out of nowhere, that I was going to marry him. He died last year after 15 years together. That deep fascination in each other lasted till the end. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about him. Thank you for telling us about him. Sorry for your loss, friend. Thank you. I love talking about him. Because he was incredible. But people avoid it. I understand why. Because I know people think it might upset me. What upsets me more is feeling like I can't mention him. He was a grumpy, funny, incredibly kind, moody, clever man, and we loved each other so very deeply. I miss him terribly. Being widowed at 44 is no fun. What was he into? Like his hobbies and what he did for work. He was a mental health nursing assistant. I was a nurse and his boss. Oops. He'd worked for 36 years in the NHS since he turned 18. 1 year away from early retirement when he died. He loved his garden. He built vape equipment and was a voracious reader. He was very self-educated on a lot of topics. He loved to cook, always testing his recipes on me. But mainly he loved spending time with me and our dog. Just talking, laughing, and snuggling on the sofa. God, I miss him. I miss him so much it physically hurts. We had a daughter who we lost when she was 12. Some days I feel like I'm being punished, losing my family. The loss of such profound happiness and love. I can't imagine how it feels. But I love how enthusiastic you are to talk about him. What is your favorite meal he would make you? My favorite memory of him cooking was one Christmas. We actually both had Xmas Day off that year. Never happens in nursing. So, he was cooking Xmas dinner. He had his tunes on and I was banned from entering the kitchen. A couple of hours passed and I was getting really hungry. I ventured into the kitchen to see him staring sadly down at an incinerated turkey, cremated potatoes, and an empty bottle of Jack Daniels next to him. He turned to me and said, "Someone burnt our dinner." I started to giggle and so did he. He kept saying, "I honestly didn't drink much. Half-liter of JD." So, we had toast and cheese for Xmas dinner. He had a horrific hangover the next day. His colleagues were all stunned I wasn't raging at him. But he wasn't a drinker, and looked so totally cute and confused. I never let him forget it though. Story 2. We'd gone to a steakhouse for dinner. Had a bit too much food and bit too much drink. We asked the server to box up dessert. We Ubered home and passed out. Lo. After flexi time in the morning, we remembered the dessert. So, I grabbed it out of the fridge and plated it up. White raspberry truffle cheesecake with raspberry sauce. We sat in bed, giggling and eating cake. When we were done, I noticed her casting a furtive glance at the plate, and sort of glancing at me out of the corner of her eyes. Me. Damn, that was good. Her. Me. Wish I had more. Her. Her. Glance. Me. You want to lick the plate, right? Her. No, well, actually, yes. Me. Go for it. I'll hold your hair back. Her laugh and the light in her eyes were too much for me. I was smitten. Would never want her to do this with anyone else ever. And knew I'd be putting a ring on it, eventually. We've been married 21 years now. We're not big on formalities. But every few years, we'll track down a slice of that cake and have it on the morning of our anniversary. Story 3. When I didn't have that anxiety you get in relationships. The thought of where they are, what they're doing, whether they'll message me or I have to message them first. There were no games. It was all consistent. Even after an argument, I knew I'd wake up to a good morning message. Everything felt safe and secure. No worries, just admiration. My girlfriend was adamant on never going to bed angry, and that made me respect her and her value of our relationship tenfold. Doesn't matter what we might have been arguing over. When we get in bed at night, we talk it out. I had a girlfriend like that. So we fought until 3 a.m. instead, and it became a war of attrition. It might work for more level-headed persons, but I can't recommend having discussions when you are completely fatigued and emotions are running high. Then it is better to go to bed. Yeah, I think the difference is in the interpretation of how to not go to bed angry. My wife and I can't always solve our problems in one day, and trying to argue while both tired is just a recipe for disaster. So sometimes we'd go to bed still disagreeing on something, but we would clarify that we still love and cherish each other. That, regardless of our problems, the important part is the strength of our relationship and the confidence that, given time, we would figure out our problems and move forward with our lives together. Story 4. I'm a pragmatist at heart. So, I thought couples who fell in love at first sight and were still in love in their old age. I worked in aged care. We're just two hopeless romantics meeting and getting lucky, when it turned out to be a lifelong thing. And then I met my husband. I knew who he was, the core of who he was, from the very first split second I saw him. All the baggage and life experiences that dictated behavior, I figured were just semantics I would learn with time. But I knew him. I was right. It's been 8 years, and we have 3 kids, and I am still completely in love with him. But the moment that completely sealed it for me happened about 3 weeks in. We had met and started living together the day after through a series of unplanned sleepovers. Stayed up too late talking, and one day we went to the store. He was paying for stuff and I realized I wasn't uncomfortable, because I was going to marry him. And not in a giddy I can't wait way. In a calm, we literally have the rest of our lives to get to it no rush kind of way. For his part, he claims he knew in the first week. Story 5. Probably when I realized I was thinking about them all the time, even during random moments. It wasn't just excitement anymore, but feeling calm and happy just being around them. And not always thinking of them in a lustful way. How can I help them? How can I make their life easier? How can I make them happier? Because you know they want the same for you. Contentment and peace. Story 6. Love isn't chemistry or butterflies. It's choosing to stay when things get tough, which feels rebellious in a swipe left world. I swear people just instantly drop each other when things get tough these days. Real partners survive harder times. I hate how true this is. I'm all for self-help and putting yourself first. But a lot of rough times can easily be fixed by daily communication. And it doesn't have to be in the form of an ultimatum either. Also, realizing one person can be depressed and then not realize how much they're falling is a real thing. And it's sad when the other person just leaves thinking the other person doesn't care. But I guess that's why life's not fair. And it's just not meant to be. As the only couple in a circle of 10 plus other couples who have all separated. It's so true. We both came from parents who'd separated though. So, I guess we were the outliers who actually learned from our parents' mistakes instead of continuing the cycle. Story 7. The first sign was for some reason I couldn't stop looking at the shape of her face. The way her lips moved when she spoke. I remember thinking that her blonde hair was so beautiful that it put the sun to shame. And even though somebody had broken me horribly just a few months earlier, even though I desperately did not want to have feelings, I couldn't imagine being without her. It was a terrifying and beautiful moment.